to Power Corridor on Law FM 103.9. It was due to circumstances that I could not control, or I could have controlled a lot better, but we're here now and we're ready to go. My name is Yray, and as always, I'm going to be doing this with Gbola Oba, as we promised earlier this week, that we're going to be reversing roles. So I'm going to be asking the questions, and of course he's going to share some insight based off of his wealth of experience and knowledge with us. Good evening, sir, and welcome to the show.
Yray Ofigo. I really sympathize with you. What happened?
The traffic.
Okay, you forgot to leave early. You were.
Oh, even when I did, it was very difficult to get vehicles.
Let's go straight into it so that some of our listeners don't get too mad with us.
No problem. But how was getting here? I hope it was better than mine for you.
Pretty easy.
All right.
It was not until I got to Ikoyi that the typical Ikoyi Lekki Phase 1 link bridge traffic wasn't that nastily heavy, but I never expected that volume of traffic today.
All right, no problem. Just to let our listeners know,
it dawned on me too that today is the official working day of the week, the first official working day of the week, so it shouldn't be out of place.
For some people, it's not even a day at all. They said it's a weird experience. You know, the days between Christmas and New Year. I wish I could relate.
Most companies are on break. Most private companies.
Yes.
A number of the companies where I'm listening, they are on break. I was in one of my offices today, and I was literally alone with the chief security officer and
I can imagine that.
And the janitorial.
All right. If you're just tuning in for the first time, Power Corridor is a non-partisan platform where we discuss socio-political issues, and particularly this week, we started off, reviewing some of the big activities or some of the socially shattering activities that occurred in the Nigerian polity this year. And we started since last week, and today you still have a chance. We're going to be continuing that conversation, myself and Mr. Gbola, and you can join this conversation online. You can interact with us on Twitter if you have thoughts and opinions. All you have to do is use the hashtag Power Corridor on our Twitter space, and of course you can at @LawFM_radio. Again, that is @LawFM_radio. If you want to talk to us on Facebook, incidentally, we're streaming live on Facebook. That is to say that you can be a part of the show online. Our Facebook page is Law FM 103.9.
If you want to see your beautiful face and my ugly face,
I will not say it. I refuse to say it.
But to an average listener, they would have discerned that with your voice, you must be beautiful, and the man beside you is a case of
not really.
It's a case of Beauty and the Beast in the radio studio.
If you want to see the enigma, that is Gbola Oba. The force that is Gbola Oba.
Enigma is the word you use for a troublesome character. Who I would suppose
I wouldn't say troublesome, but when it comes to the issues that we're discussing,
let's go.
I'm transitioning to it. When it comes to the issues that we're discussing, one can say that you're an enigma in this field, and that is why it's very good for us to have these kind of conversations. To call in and join the conversation, the number is 070-322-77338 or 090-9555-1039. Again, it's 070-322-77338 or 090-9555-1039. Alternatively, you can send a text message or a WhatsApp message or use our social media platforms. Like I said, we're streaming on Facebook. It's 103.9 Law FM 103.9, and Instagram is Law FM 103.9 as well. So last week we left the conversation, I think, on Monday. Thank you very much. So yes, I think let's do a quick review.
I guess somebody's getting some disorientation of days and dates. It does happen a lot,
especially in this time of the year. Yes. Okay, so Monday, we started off with the emergence of Senator Abdullahi Adamu as APC's new chairman, and we touched based on that, and you expressed a bit of can I say disappointment?
For emphasis to our listeners, we are reviewing the year 2022.
Yes.
Especially political activities, events, and occurrences, and we're also veering not too much in detail to socio-economic issues, but not as much detail as politics.
Right. Okay, away from the emergence of Adamu as the chairman of the APC, we also talked about the criticism trailing this administration, and a caller on Monday pointed out that he thinks that Nigerians are being too critical of Mr. President.
Two callers actually.
Yeah, two callers.
Mazi and the gentleman that called in from
Ekiti Olumide. Yes. Okay, and also we talked a bit about the presidential nomination forms, which I did promise is a place to start off today's episode.
And I told you needed not have wasted your time.
I
gave my opinion, which I will reiterate today if you want to go there.
We are going to go there, Mr. Gbola. We're going to go there. Not because it's personal to me, but something that an APC chieftain said earlier this year, when he said that the prices for the nomination form were that high because they want people of substance. I'm not sure now whether or not he was referring to financial substance, but he wanted it to be something that not just anybody can just pick up. And I think a counter and line of thought to that particular idea was, what about if you make it affordable so that even good people or people who have the good orientation of governance and do not have that much money can still buy? And then the person said, the same chieftain, I don't know why his name is not coming to me now, but what he said...
It was Adamu now.
Was it Adamu?
Yes.
Okay.
The chairman of the party.
So what he said that I thought was interesting was, if a person is of good character and has the right attitude towards governance, has a lot to offer the people, he thinks that as it's obtainable in other countries of the world, the people's followers or well-meaning Nigerians who have seen what this person has to offer and really genuinely think that this person can serve their cause could contribute to get the form for the person, but that putting it at that high price was to encourage stiff competition.
You are doing what I often call intellectual flagellation. You are overbeating yourself intellectually.
Well, why do you say so?
Because this, the last time we touched this issue, I told you that for me, it was just look, I really want to pick my words so that I don't use words that are not good for radio. But for me, it was all the excuses that you said the person gave, and who I told you was Adamu.
Yes.
All those excuses were at best intellectual acrobatics. For me, this is supposed to be a liberal democracy. In a liberal democracy, you want to make sure that opportunities are as liberally accessible. I hope I'm communicating, madam.
Yes.
That opportunities are as liberally accessible as possible. Now, when you put in 100 million, which the PDP also ended up copying, but in a rather subtle way, but still very prohibitive, 50 million to apply to be a candidate of the party. For me, that smacks of pure plutocracy. A government of the exclusively rich few, by the exclusively rich few, for the exclusively rich few, is, to be honest with you, in a society or in a polity where the electorate is intellectually mature and well educated, a party would have gotten a good backlash for that. But you know what? We are where we are. Majority of our electors, people who constitute our electorate, they are browbeaten, downtrodden, largely ignorant. They are not the type who will be blowing the kind of grammar we are blowing. So they can be abused, and the parties will get away with it. But for me, it does not in any way, shape or form sit well enough with the general values and principles of liberal democratic culture. Simple.
Okay, no problem. I think I should point out that I wasn't even trying to convince you otherwise. I just wanted you to extensively
the passion
your thoughts.
The passion with which you took it. The passion with which
no, because I wanted to get you to really express yourself.
The passion with which you bounced it from Monday to Wednesday, and even on Wednesday, you seem to be. Are you Mbappe or Maradona or Messi around it? I don't really want to say Messi.
I just want to.
But it's your show for today, and whenever it's your show, that is how you do the
right.
autocracy
right.
of the woman,
Mr. Gbola,
of the woman folk.
I just want to use the opportunity to point out that it was on this same platform a little less than 2 weeks ago that you called me an obedient. I just wanted to remind you. I thought it was a good time to remind you.
Oh no, and to be honest with you, one of the reasons why obedientism is gaining traction in today's society is because the very few intellectually enlightened and intellectually minded electors who saw through some of the abuses of the two mainstream parties. One of the reasons why the obedient movement seems to be gaining a degree of vavavoom or a degree of momentum is because of the irritation, the exasperation that some of these people feel to the two mainstream parties as a result of such blatant acts of arrogance.
Right. Well, I said that to say that I am actually non-partisan, as the platform is.
I never said the word. I was just thinking that the question that day was too.
No, I wanted to get you to extensively talk on it, and I think I pretty much.
And the two parties must actually be congratulating themselves now for so irritating a sizable percentile of the Nigerian electorate, that those who are a bit more enlightened, apart from our kinsmen from the southeast, who have been largely marginalized, especially under this incumbent president.
Yeah.
But apart from those people who have been largely marginalized, the obedience today across the Nigerian geopolitical zones are largely people who are relatively well educated and who have had enough
of going around the circle. Let's put it that way. Okay, let's moving on. Let's move on to the special convention of the presidential, the current administration, APC.
Really good,
the special convention that held, I think, in June. Yes, after weeks of political intrigues, the presidential
candidature.
Nominated Asiwaju, or from which Asiwaju emerged. So after weeks of political intrigues and horse trading, the presidential primaries of the Nigeria's ruling party, All Progressive, was held on June 9th. It was an event that was characterized by top contenders who brought in their A game. And I think the highlight of the APC's primary was when Asiwaju Bola Tinubu emerged as the party's flag bearer after contesting keenly. And well, let's say keenly with the Vice President Yray Ofigo, as well as the likes of Rotimi Amechi.
It was not keenly, it was a dusty.
You know that I paused when I said keenly. I paused. We had people in line with him at that time were the likes of Rotimi Amechi, Ahmed Lawan, and Yray Ofigo. And yeah, I know that you had to correct me keenly for using the word keenly. Why? Let's hear your opinion.
The cumulative votes of all his opponents. The cumulative votes of all the opponents was not even up to what he scored. So to use the word keenly seems a bit exaggerated in favor of his opponents. So it wasn't so keenly. He seemed to have done his own homework from before the party was actually formed. From the formation of the party, he had also played a strategic game that when it was time,
a lot of people just started giving up for him
within the system of the party, notwithstanding that a lot of people too were shocked that a man of his age, number one, were shocked that a man of what seemed to ostensibly be a state of health, that a man that what seemed to many has coming from the geopolitical zone of the country, that if one were to rationalize the fact that geopolitical zone would not ordinarily produce the highest number of voters as the northern votes, or that if the principle of equity and fairness were to be followed, and that geopolitical zone ought not to be this thing, a number of people for those reasons, cumulatively or disparately, a number of people felt he was overshooting. He was pointing a damn gun to shoot down the moon. But you know what? He was so confident of his investment, of his networking investments and goodwill, and a trust turn, even when at some point some characters in the party wanted to use the presidency as a scaremongering phenomenon against him. He knew, I guess it was, I want to give this to him. If anybody had realized that Buhari was only concerned about his own presidency and was not interested in the quality of governance of the country or who succeeds him, I guess Bola Tinubu seemed to me now to have vindicated himself as somebody who just felt, when I was a boy in Mushi, we used to watch some elderly men in the neighborhood play games like Ayo or draft, what we often call a draft. The game of draft.
Yeah.
There was a particular man called Babasheshe. Babasheshe would say shop, would be pointing you to the games you need to take.
Yeah.
But he was pointing you to those games because he wanted to create all the lacunae with which he was going to rubbish your game. I think Bola Tinubu knew from get-go. Sitting here now, and hindsight being 2020, he probably knew that Buhari was not going to add value to Nigeria. But you know what? Buhari would be the most strategic stepping stone for him to gain the presidency that he seems now to be the candidate to beat.
Interesting. I see what you mean there, but let me also now ask, since we're still on this issue, if he hadn't emerged as the party flag bearer, and from someone who was looking at it from the outside, who were you really rooting for?
To be honest with you, I've always told you this, off camera or off mic. I've always told you that a sizable part of my life is APC. Half of my bed, indeed, more than half of my bed is APC. You must remember that my wife is an APC card carrying member. A number of people I do businesses with are APC. But when it comes to Nigeria, sometimes I've resigned myself to, and it's important to say this at this juncture. I've resigned myself to the fact that for the next couple of years that I'll spend on the face of the earth, I would be working with incrementalism against any delusional, because I suffered such a delusional backlash after Buhari's 2015, 2 weeks into Buhari's coming into office, I just knew that I had helped in promoting what was not going to be. Because how could a man who contested for 12 years previously, won the election 90 days before he was sworn in, how could that person not have constituted his cabinet in 2 weeks? From that moment I knew, and when I started saying it on radio and TV, people were lambasting me that I was a bit too impatient, that he was taking his time, it was this, and nothing from then what he could do that I was not reconciling with that principle football, that this is a man who does not seem to care about anybody but himself. And the unfortunate incident of having to leave the shores of Nigeria initially for a couple of weeks, then again for more than 100 days happened, and it just dawned on me that we would end up having a very pedestrian president for, I thought it was going to be 4 years. Unfortunately, PDP turned the 2019 elections against themselves, because by selecting Atiku, they turned it into a kind of moral referendum, and it was easy for APC strategists. Even when some of us I was ultra neutral. I was ultra neutral because I didn't see any much hope in the two of them. But you see, APC strategists could easily go to the back room and go and conceptualize an idea to say Atiku against an ascetic Buhari. This one is, this one personifies squandermania, megalomania, and all this, and ultimately, Buhari won. So I'm sitting there now thinking, when that show was going on, I didn't have any particular candidate, but I had already told my wife, who had been aggressively campaigning for Gbola Oba almost a year before, and had been expending her resources, and when it was about 3 weeks before, they were so paranoid, and that was ultimately what culminated in Gbola Oba going to Ogun to lambast the governor of Ogun State, who thought because he wanted to hide behind raw power, wanted to be playing chicanery on Gbola Oba, and that was why he came the Lule Meta story came, and that even at that point, Gbola Oba had given up himself. He just wanted to give a fight. The typical Yoruba heroism, if everything was going to be lost, I must put my own story straight. And 3 weeks before, my wife was so paranoid, even was having anxiety on the bed, she couldn't sleep. And I kept telling her, if they allowed that guy to enter the Eagle Square, or whichever event or convention ground that election was going to take place, he would dust anybody, even if Buhari were to contest against him. If they did not allow him, if they refuse to allow him, or if they don't want him to win, they should make sure he didn't get into the event center. And that morning when Gbola Oba got to the event center, it was obvious to me that he was a candidate. The vice president, with due respect, I never believed he could get it, because the power structure of the party was not warming up to him, and the fact that the president did not come out to openly endorse him was enough. If he had gotten the open endorsement of the president, traction, momentum would have backed his the selling of his But he didn't get it.
But some had said that time before of course the convention, some had said that open endorsement probably didn't happen because he maybe wouldn't have wanted it himself, considering that this administration has been under a lot of scrutiny from the electorate who are not very pleased. So seeing the president, endorse him as the forerunner, I don't know, would that have actually done like a positive impact for him?
Bola Ahmed Tinubu is proving a point now that a lot of people must sit down and learn from. I learned this the hard way. I learned it the hard way, especially in England. When you are campaigning as an aspirant for the candidature of your party, you can afford, and even Donald Trump taught the world one or two lessons about it, and it's even commonly happening now in most liberal democracies in the West, from United States of America to Canada is a bit softer on it. Germany is a bit softer on it. Macron did it in France. The immediate past British Prime Minister did it. She didn't quite know how to recalibrate, and I'll get to it. And Richie Sunak is doing it. You know what? When you are campaigning to members of your party, you can afford to flirt with fundamentalism, ideological fundamentalism. Say what they want to hear. But as soon as you've emerged as the candidate of your party and you are campaigning to the larger electorate, you try to recalibrate or wind back to the middle of to the middle of the ideological center.
Right.
Now, so for me, if the vice president didn't know that then, look at what Bola Ahmed Tinubu is doing now. He's won the candidature of the party. He knows he wants to leverage the power of incumbency of Buhari. He is not totally condemning Buhari. He's campaign strategist. They are almost giving Buhari the impression that we are the only people who can cover your track when you are gone, and that is why we will not openly campaign. We will not openly use your failures as a campaign strategy. We will be excusing your failures. They are doing that because they want to leverage the machinery, the enormous machinery of coercion at the disposal of an executive president in a country like Nigeria. And yet they are campaigning that Bola Ahmed Tinubu is Bola Ahmed Tinubu, different from Buhari. Fantastic strategy. They are balancing. They are working the trapeze. So if the vice president didn't know that when he declared, especially against a Bola Ahmed Tinubu who had initially declared weeks before he eventually made up his mind, then it's not good enough to be
the forerunner. Okay, if you're just tuning in, this is Power Corridor with Gbola Oba. My name is Yray, and we're doing this together as a special feature for this week, where we're reviewing major political issues and socio-economic activities for the year 2022. You can join the conversation. You can ask your questions, share your opinions and thoughts. The number to call is 070-322-77338 or 090-9555-1039. Again, it's 070-322-77338 or 090-9555-1039. An alternative to the calls would be to send a text message or a WhatsApp message. Use our social media platforms. Facebook, we are streaming live on Facebook, and that means you can join the audio-visual platform and just share your thoughts on the go. Facebook is Law FM 103.9. Again, Facebook is Law FM 103.9, and Instagram is Law FM Radio. You can also join the conversation live on Twitter using the hashtag Power Corridor with Gbola or hashtag Power Corridor, and of course tag us at Law FM _radio. Again, that is at Law FM _radio, and the hashtag is Power Corridor, hashtag Power Corridor with Gbola. Okay, so we have this contribution on our Facebook Live. This person says, if private candidature is a norm now, who would you have pushed, Mr. Gbola Oba?
Fantastic question. Number one, it's a very hypothetical question because as we speak, private candidature is not allowed in our constitution. Is one of the issues on amendment going the rounds of the houses of the states houses of assembly as we speak. I pray it materializes, because if it materializes, then we would ordinarily have our champions that one could enthusiastically support. If candidate with out there now amongst the visible elements, I probably would have supported a Professor Patrick. I probably would have, not so much because I would be delusional enough to think it would win, but because I have seen a man who ideates and has translated some of those ideationing to reality, and I would ordinarily believe that a man who can encourage the preponderation of ideas, a man who can be comfortable engaging with intellectually fecund minds, would be a good instrument, would be a good pivotal base to and that is even one of the things they are using to market Bola Tinubu as we speak. His antecedents in Lagos as somebody who is a facilitator of ideas that others hold, but we just help them play your ball, like a coach that allows talented people to play their balls. I would ordinarily have Party Tommy would come to mind.
All right, that's interesting to know, and also to point out that message was from Olamilekan AJ Saludin. Thank you very much for joining the conversation and sharing your thoughts. Moving on, let's talk about the PDP primaries. So the Opposition People's Democratic Party primaries was another event that has left a lot of people talking, mostly in the Nigerian polity. This is because the emergence of Atiku Abubakar as the party's flag bearer and Governor Ifeanyi Okowa as his running mate has led to some internal crisis. And yes, particularly on this show, I know when we started this thing, this Power Corridor program, it was one of the things, a few guests that came here, you pointed out and asked questions revolving around the internal crisis of the PDP extensively. Exactly how do you feel about activities leading up to the primaries, during the primaries, and where the party stands right now? What is your opinion from the point of an outsider, of course?
I think the way you presented this subject, you may have done a lot of injustice to three major events. Less than 2 weeks before PDP's convention, Peter Obi jumped the boat.
Yes. I don't know why I wanted to save that for another topic. But
in chronological order, it is just imperative to do it.
Yes.
Peter Obi jumped the boat. The jumping of the boat by Peter Obi is now a major political phenomenon in Nigeria. Peter Obi jumped the boat and escaped to the
Labour Party,
the dinghy of the Labour Party. I'm choosing my words carefully, and I know you are a water woman. You are a Wafe woman, so you must know the difference between the boat and the dinghy.
Right.
Abi? So he jumped the boat to escape to the dinghy of the Labour Party. Today, he seems to have turned the Labour Party dinghy to a boat of a sort, a thought force of a sort. But ironically, I wonder what will happen to that dinghy if after the elections he eventually leaves. I hope Labour Party will not turn into a perpetual
What if he doesn't leave?
A perpetual park and ride, he will naturally leave, because it's not cheap in a liberal democracy to run parties. I was a partisan in the UK, a card-carrying Conservative Party member who at a point was also choosing to contest on the platform of the Conservative Party. It is not easy in any liberal democracy to run a political party. So, apart from the APC and the PDP, the other parties would naturally end up becoming park and ride parties.
Is that right?
To be honest with you, it may seem hard, but
so I feel a little bit different, because I think that we are facing it's a build up to a revolution, so much so that if the Labour Party doesn't win, I don't think that's the end of it. I think in fact that will be the beginning of a new era in terms of governorship in Nigeria. That we'll have more than one.
The greatest misfortune that the Labour Party is suffering now, people seldom say I'm a member of the Labour Party or I'm supporting the Labour Party. You know what people say? They say I'm obedient.
Right.
Look, my sister, political analysis is a game of pragmatism. You understand? One does not need to over-idealize. What is happening in the Labour Party now is largely dependent on Peter Obi as the candidate of the Labour Party. Anything outside that is just idealism or so leave that one. What happened at the convention ground of the PDP, the palace coup that was orchestrated against Wike, especially the strategic error of allowing Tambuwal to come again after he had given in a free and fair contest, after Tambuwal had addressed the electors and had gone, and everybody had addressed the elector. Suddenly the chairman of their electoral committee, through the chairman of the party, suddenly then came out and addressed the convention that Tambuwal had an important message. I knew from that moment that Atiku would never ever get the almost always packaged loyalty of southeastern Nigerian votes for PDP. The circumstance of that, the circumstance of through which that coup was machinated, instructed the fact that some elements would use it against Atiku, not only in the south but particularly
within the party,
within the party and in the southeast. And you see, after the convention, because he had once held a president to ransom as a vice president, knowing what a vice president, an assertive vice president could do, Atiku, against the opinion, the majority opinion of a committee that he ostensibly set up to assess the likely vice presidential candidates, Atiku picked the person that was not the one nominated by the majority of the members of the committee. So the fixture became an explosion, and he's still managing the explosion. And to be honest with you, I would want to believe that this election cycle may have been lost by Atiku.
I think I do not even know that. Okay, maybe this is only just a now assertion that the PDP would go any far again as it is. The Atiku really is a formidable contender, but looking at the workings of the party and every now and again everything that we see in the news, it just seems like a house that is divided against itself, and probably has been even before the PDP convention. But it took that to fully, explode for all to see. Even now, it just seems like a lot of party chieftains, and this is not just a some wiki affair or just the G5 governors. It just seems like a lot of party faithfuls are working against themselves, and long term, it doesn't help them as a party. So you see what you said about the Labour Party.
You're originally from Delta. I was shocked this morning to read about protests in Delta against the person of
Okowa, yes.
And you know what? If Okowa is getting that, if he's getting that back slap
from his home state,
his home state as the vice presidential candidate of Atiku, that is an extra baggage to the heavily laden baggage
of the PDP
of Peter Obi, practically pulling the carpets beneath the feet of Atiku in the southeast and the south, and in some parts of the south. I'm sitting here now thinking Peter Obi may likely win a state like Edo. I'm thinking now that out of frustration, the sizable percentile of people who ought to vote PDP in Delta may not just vote out of frustration and in higher percentage for Peter Obi. So if you really look at it, and what has cost this thing now, because of the revelation of Wike that the 13% derivation funds, and when people start seeing the figures
was allocated, it's
allocated to, and this is a man who has taken that much money and is still owing pensioners, owing workers, some forms of workers in a state. So I really wish Atiku and Okowa, I wish them, but the dynamics of this cycle of elections does not say, or electioneering campaigns, the dynamics don't seem to be smiling at Atiku. A number of things.
But let me ask quite clearly, what do you think, what do you make of the PDP going forward, even after the elections, whether or not it turns out in their favor? You see what you said about the Labour Party. I would have felt that towards the PDP. Of course, we cannot write the history of Nigerian politics without PDP, but it looks like, I don't know, do you still see a formidable People's Democratic Party in the coming years?
Because in most liberal democracies, it is often the phenomenon that two major parties, however weak one is, however strong the other one is, two major parties will be relevant beyond electioneering cycles. So I believe that PDP will still be there.
Okay. All right. Olamilekon AJ Saludin is also talking to us again on our Facebook Live. Thank you very much. It says, then how would a solo president succeed without having allies in Senate or, I don't know, I can't see the rest of the comment. Okay, I will go to that.
Olamilekon AJ Saludin, I must be very honest with you. I'm not a betting man. Once that I lost money at Idioro playing this thing, I stopped betting about 50-something years ago. But I can afford to say, without wanting to sadden a lot of my listeners who may be obedient, that the dynamics of how Obi will emerge as the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, from the 2023 general elections, the 25th of February elections, I don't want to say impossible, but the the calculations are a bit still untidy to me.
Okay. Because we do not have time, I will just read this out as our next conversation, whether or not we want to start it now or finish up on Friday or wait till Friday. But let's talk next conversation. Rabiu Kwankwaso forming a new party.
To be honest with you, also run. I can afford, I can't do that to be, because anybody who watches political events in Nigeria will see that the Obi phenomenon is now almost a national phenomenon that only is lacking in the area of superstructure. And when we say superstructure, these things do matter. But the Obi phenomenon is a national phenomenon now. I don't see the Kwankwaso phenomenon as a national phenomenon. I think Kwankwaso is a Kano phenomenon.
Okay, let's take this call. Hello, good evening. Oh dear, we lost that. Apologies if it's a network situation for you. The rest of Olamilekan's comment is, how would a solo president succeed without having allies in Senate or Governors Forum? And Obi presidency is definitely going to be dramatic and time wasting.
He's done it before. However, I must point this out, because one of the things you do when you're analyzing is that you balance factors, and you let your listeners make up their mind. Obi has done it before. When Obi's stolen mandate was restored by the courts, Obi ended up becoming a governor, the chief executive officer of the state, working with a state legislature or House of Assembly that was largely PDP. And to be honest with you, he didn't quite get, because he is a bit of an administrative, he doesn't quite waste money like typical politicians would. They what they did? They impeached him 8 months into assuming office. But when the court restored him, I guess he had learnt a couple of things, and the then, God bless his soul, the late Odumogu Ojukwu, had formed the political movement that Obi kind of, used to manage the assembly. So
let's wrap up with this call. Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Please put off your radio. Hello, we can hear you. Can you hear us? Okay, apparently not. Hello, are you there? Okay, so unfortunately we couldn't take any more calls. Yes.
Another call is coming in.
Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, what's your name?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. This is Ambassador Musba, original Omomushi.
All right,
there's no fake Omomushi anywhere. Especially those of us who came to Mushi through the natal source.
Original Omomushi.
Okay, maybe
Omomushi, you have 1 minute.
Maybe you are the fake one. Trying to outshout the.
All right, you have 1 minute, very quickly.
Okay, go.
On much serious note, we have two parties, APC, PDP, honestly. But if Obi could try more, 2017 after the election, it's going to be one. If he can continue like this, honestly speaking, he's going to make it. But for now, as I'm speaking with you, for now, because most of the PDP votes are being divided for Obi right now, obedience. To me, let's see how they're going to do it, but I still remain on my word. I can see the best. If Omomushi cannot do that, it's between APC and PDP.
All right, thank you very much.
No, let's be very honest with ourselves. I really want to agree with Musbel to some extent that Obi is going to be a vote spoiler for Atiku. Because a sizable percentage of the votes from the southeast will go for Obi. A respectable percentage of the votes from the south and the north central take away Kwara. You are looking at states like Benue, Plateau. I won't write off Obi. So I'm sitting here now thinking, except maybe Atiku will just go and prostrate like Obasanjo prostrated for Atiku when he was, the vice president wielding the powers of the governors. I think if Atiku may need to go and prostrate for Obi to just tell Obi that just tell them you are withdrawing, because if this election cycle goes the way it's going, Obi will get some very good electoral scores from states that originally would have voted PDP.
For PDP. All right, I think we're going to leave it there because we're out of time. Thank you very much, Mr. Gbola, for doing me the honors again. And we're going to continue this conversation on Friday. But don't forget, you can follow up Mr. Gbola. You can, interact with him on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It's Gbola_Oba. Again, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is Gbola_Oba. My name is Yray, and in a few minutes, I will be back with the news. This is your only law radio station, Law FM 103.9.
Strap yourself in because we're set up, switched on, and ready to go
on Law FM 103.9.